Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are going to, this is a conversation. So we hope to run it as a conversation. So we invite you to turn on your camera so that we can see each other and kind of facilitate conversation in that way. So if you are comfortable, please join us in the camera world. Okay. And I know there have been some Zoom difficulties today. Nick was just telling me about having joined the previous session of roundtables and getting kind of booted from that. So, we'll see. Hopefully, I assume we'll have some stragglers coming in. But again, for everybody who's just joined us, we invite you to turn on your video if you're comfortable with that. And we are hoping, as this is a roundtable, we are hoping that this will be a fun and interesting and robust conversation. So we invite you to participate as we're talking and join in so that we can talk about one of my favorite topics, technology equipment loan. Let's see. Okay. So we are a couple minutes into our time. So I will go ahead and start our introductions and kind of vamp a little until to see if anybody else is joining us. But to kick us off, hi, I'm Kelsey Schaefer. I am the Creative Technologies Librarian at Clemson, and I run a space called the Adobe Studio and Makerspace. And my co-presenter today is Nick Baldwin. Nick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So like Kelsey said, I'm Nick. I manage the technology lending collection at Clemson Libraries out of the circulation department. So Kelsey and I work pretty close together getting this stuff sorted out. And yeah, the subject of this is pretty much what I live every day. So this should be fun.
Great. Okay, so I'm gonna start us off with a little introduction to what we plan to talk about today and kind of why we are talking about this. So this roundtable is about technology equipment loan. And so the way that I think about this is academic libraries have always, have generally loaned out books. That has been a standard practice in academic libraries, in all libraries. And then in the past few decades, the libraries have started loaning out things beyond books. And so everybody calls that something different, it seems like, at different schools. That's something I've found as I've been doing research on this topic. Some people call it equipment loan. Some people call it, device checkout, loanable technology. I call it technology equipment loan, but we are broadly talking about loaning out cameras and tablets and projectors and things like that to the general population. Again, this has become increasingly popular and, an important component of especially academic libraries. We'll talk about that specifically today since that's what we're going into, but also please, that's what I am familiar with. Please expand, talk about any library that you are a part of, because I think that will help. We of course take a lot of inspiration from especially public libraries and the kinds of things that they loan out, and we can talk about that as well. So at Clemson, we have over 600 items of technology equipment that ranges from, again, cameras to camera accessories like lenses and tripods. We have projectors. We have all sorts of things, and it is a really robust part of our collection. So while that 600, 700 odd number amounts to, it's something like 0.0007% of our overall collection, the technology equipment loan stuff accounts for 20 1% of our loans in general. So it's a tiny part of the collection, but a huge part of our circulation. And that's one piece that I'm really interested in. So I recently ran a survey of the usage and the usage at Clemson, and was thinking about who's using this and how they're using it, and whether they're getting the information that they need to be able to use the equipment broadly. And so we can talk about some of those results if needed, but in general, that's that's what we're thinking about, and why we think it's an important thing to be thinking about. At Clemson, students, everybody can check any of the items out, but you do have to be a member of the Clemson community, so you have to have a Clemson card, and you can check out the items for 3 days at a time. We used to have reservations. We don't have reservations anymore as of the last couple months, so we can talk about reservations as well if people are interested in that. But the first thing that we want to do, Nick, is there anything that you want to add to that kind of preamble?
No, I think that's a great intro. You may have mentioned it, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll be keeping my eye on that, and we can go from there.
Okay, great. And yeah, and I think also Nick and I, so Nick does all the daily operations. You do the cataloging of the items, and then I help with approving like budget things and doing helping with some of the strategic direction. So we have the kind of we span both sides of the technology equipment loan question at Clemson. So we're going to get into some of both of those details. Okay, so again, as this is a round table and we want this to be a conversation, we are going to ask everybody we're going to do a group introduction and have people go around. So the way that I'm going to do this is call on people so that we can have, because it's always a little bit hard to be like, okay, who's going next? So what I'm going to ask is for you to say your name, your institutional title. Again, like I'm the creative technologies librarian at Clemson, so say your university affiliation, and then your relationship to technology equipment loans. So are you just interested in it? Do you oversee the program at your school? Things like that. So I'll put that in the chat. And we will start with, and again, we welcome you to turn on your cameras if you're up for that. If you cannot, then you're welcome to just unmute. How about, can I pop it to Kara?
How did I know you're going to say my name? I have no idea. My name is Kara Barker, and I am a research and instruction librarian, but I'm also over we call our space the Scholar Studio, and I'm recently have acquired that extra title. I'm at Western Carolina University, up in the mountains, and because I oversee the studio space, which includes some recording booths and a bunch of other items that we have, equipment that we want to promote. So my biggest thing right now is hearing from people about how they find it best to get the word out and to promote the stuff that they actually have. So.
Great, thank you. How about Mike?
Hey, I'm Mike. I'm the digital media specialist at Hartford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland. Basically, I started my position earlier this year, and I oversee our One Button Studio, the Digital Media Lab, which is like Adobe Creative Cloud and all that kind of stuff. My relationship to technology equipment loan would be procurement, taking inventory, any maintenance, any instruction that people need when they're checking something out. The one thing that is interesting, and I'm trying to do detective work here, is that there seems to be kind of a difference in perspective of, what are things that are under my purview and what things aren't. So if it's something that is what I would say creative in nature somehow, microphones, cameras, things like that, tripods, digital audio recorders, it's like that's Mike's thing. Then there's other things that are like, webcams, that they're kind of like, no, it's not your thing. laptops, anything that ITS needs to touch first.
Huh. Yeah.
That's maybe not my thing, and so that's part of the discussion. So
Interesting. Yeah, that is yeah, how do we define like what's a part of this or what's not? Yeah, thank you for thinking about that. How about Allison? Are you with us?
Hey, I hope you can hear me okay. I don't have camera available at the moment, but I'm Allison Van Leer. I'm the User Services Coordinator at Hope College in Holland, Michigan, and I oversee the Circulation Department, which for us includes a fairly sizable equipment lending program.
Awesome. Thank you. How about Sandy?
Hi, folks. I'm Sandy Rodriguez. I'm the Associate Dean for Special Collections and Archives at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I don't do anything with technology lending, but we are in the process. We just officially established the Center for Digital and Public Humanities at the university, working administratively out of our School of Humanities and Social Sciences. But the library is a key partner, and we've renovated. During the pandemic, we renovated a space for a digital collaboration studio, and there's a secure storage room. And right now we're doing all this like fundraising to actually staff the space, because it's very minimally staffed and it's on a completely different floor from circulation. So the thing that gets checked out is the key to the secure storage room that has additional equipment that the history department actually has equipment in. So we're kind of in the beginning stages of kind of working out like this partnership, who is doing what in relation to it. But I think once we hopefully we're courting a donor right now, get some funds and actually get staffing for the studio, it's going to be more library led, because we've learned that our teaching faculty don't do well with operational services. We do that really well. So, yeah, very, very preliminary stages.
Great. I'm so happy. Thank you everybody for sharing. This is extremely interesting to hear how everybody's coming to the table and thinking about these things. So thanks all. Okay, how about Kelly?
Hi, I am the technology team leader for the Ruth Lilly Medical Library, part of Indiana University School of Medicine. And it's kind of been a dream of mine to see if we could lend out some innovative health technology. I mean, there's a lot being done with wearables and other kind of cool technologies, but so far it's just a dream.
Great, thank you. And Jane?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Zhao, Director of Digital Media Commons of Rice University. Our department, Digital Media Commons, we check out equipment. We have about 77 titles, about 200 items. We check out cameras, tripods, audio recorders, accessories, supporting gears. Yeah, so we're just here to learn and to share.
Great, thank you. How about Paul?
Sure. So I'm Paul Worcester. I'm the head of creative technology within Harvard Library. And we have 2 lending collections that are run by my group. The way it works at my university is that the other schools, like the business school and law school, have their own groups, their own budgets, their own lending collections. So there's 2 that are run by my group, and we create the kits, the documentations, the workshops, the drop-ins that a lot of you also probably do. Access Services lends them for us. So that's maybe something a little bit different about our setup. We have one collection that's based out of the undergrad science library. And that one largely overlaps with the second collection, but it's a little heavier in VR and public address systems for the universities, or for the students rather. The other collection is over in the humanities library, and that one historically has been heavier on video production options.
Great, thank you. How about Andy?
Andy Tignall, Fort Hays State University. I'm the Learning Commons Coordinator at Forsyth Library and Learning Commons. And my relationship to technology is that I don't actually work the circulation desk where they check out the technology, but they call me in for when they need help with how to use the technology. I'm a good share of my job here is technology support. So I help people with stuff. I also play a role in choosing what equipment we supply. And I guess some of our bigger questions are like, what do you do about late returns? We put holds on their accounts and stuff. Sometimes that doesn't really matter to them if they don't really want to graduate, or if it doesn't return at all. And what about broken items? Any sort of penalties you guys do for that? And we have a lot of issues with Apple products, which should be very good for education and public use. But updating those and clearing off accounts is like a constant battle because you do have to sign into so many things on iPads and on Macs. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right, Mario.
Hi, my name is Mario. I'm the Digital Media Commons Supervisor. I actually work for Jane Zhao in Rice University. And I thought I would just join to look very interesting.
Awesome. And I think our last person is Liz. Liz, are you with us?
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, sorry about that. I've been kind of like, I work in a makerspace, well, the library, and then the makerspace is downstairs in the basement. So I'm like kind of been jumping around over here helping the students out. So what are we doing? I missed the first part.
Yeah. I know I should have put the things in the chat. If you could just tell us your name, title, university, and then your relationship to technology equipment loan.
Gotcha. Actually, I'm not in a university. I'm at a high school at Phillips Academy, and I am the makerspace coordinator and experience designer here. And so, some of what I do here is, work in the makerspace and of course, facilitate the workshops, help the students with their projects, either academic or personal. And so one of the things that I wanted to learn from this particular workshop here is how to check out. Forever ago, I attended an ISAM. I mean, this was like, oh gosh, over 4 years ago. And somebody from MIT had brought up something about making these like really cool kits, like soldering kits, and putting it together and having like student volunteers, making sure that everything's fine with them and checking the equipment. And then using the library as a way to kind of like as a checkoutable item. And so that's something that I've been very interested in doing since I was working at Georgia State University a few years ago. And I didn't have like the direct connection like I do now with library systems. And so I'm like, so it's like, it feels like I can like really access more of their database a little bit better. And so that's what I'm hoping to learn from today.
Great. Thank you. And Alexis, I'm not trying to forget you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alexis.
Oh, that's fine. I was like, okay, never mind. I won't go. Hi, I'm Alexis. I'm the creative technology specialist at Clemson. I work with both Kelsey and Nick, so I get the best of both worlds of technology.
That's right. All right. And did I miss anybody? I think I covered it. Okay. So, all right. So what that was, I think, very helpful for me to think through like who everybody is and where they're coming from, and the way that I would represent kind of the consensus of what I hear is that we have some people that are interested in technology equipment loan, but haven't, are working on starting a program or thinking about how exactly it's going to work. And then we have some people that are doing the day-to-day operations. And then we have some people that are at kind of at an administrative level, figuring out how this is going to go. So it's a perfect swath, actually. So with that in mind, it sounds like we have some procedural questions. So I'd like to go ahead and jump into, if we can start with kind of how we run these programs. I think we'll start with the kind of nitty gritty, the day-to-day operations, and then expand out into strategic directions, how we think about these things. And I will also, of course, Nick and I will lead some questions, and then we'll also leave time at the end for people to jump in with further questions. We also will send out a list with the people that were in attendance today and their emails, and we can start up. One of the things that I would like us to talk about is like, there's not a forum that I know of for people that are working in this area. And yet we have constant questions about, are we doing things in the best way? And what is everybody else buying right now? And, you know, are people doing reservations or not? And so we want to also talk about like, how do we stay in touch? You know, how do people that are interested in these things stay in touch? So starting with procedures, Nick, do you want to explain the lifespan of an item from the moment that we purchase it to like how it, you know, how you think about putting it out into operation and then how a student interacts with it?
Yeah. So starting at, I guess, the very beginning, usually what we do is Kelsey and I will sit down and we'll talk about any ideas that we have for items moving forward, and we'll collect that throughout, say, a semester. And then once it's time to purchase all of that, that's usually a few large purchases that we do. Then when those items come in, it's then a matter of like, what's that, Kelsey?
Go ahead.
Once we get the items, like it's trying to figure out what's the best way to like case this item. And if it's something we have before, that's great. Usually with new items though, it's a lot of how can I purchase something that will keep this organized, but also incentivize the return of both the item and all the pieces for that item. And once all those things are gathered up, I then start with the cataloging, building the record, and you know, putting together piece count sheets, and getting information ready for the website, and labeling. Labeling is unfortunately a large part. Trying to make sure all the pieces are accounted for.
And Nick has a system for labeling the items. So everything is in a case and there is a tag on the case that says every item that's in the box. It has a photo of the item and the name of the item. And so that's a lot of what you do on the front end as well.
Yeah, which I find is super helpful, both for the staff at the desk, if I'm not, you know, the one checking out that item, to make sure everything's available, but also for patrons so they can see what items are in that. And it helps take the guesswork out to make sure everything is returned, which of course, not everything's always returned, but.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how we put together an item. I really love that system of the tags. I think it's really helpful for the patrons and the people that are checking items in and out. So when somebody comes in to check out, say, a camera, somebody at the front desk grabs the camera from the back, goes through the list of things that should be in the kit with the student that's checking it out or the patron that's checking it out. And then the same thing happens in reverse when they bring it back. Does anybody want to talk through like specific questions you have about procedures, talk about your procedures, how they might differ from ours, that kind of initial checkout of items? Anything that springs to mind there, since we had some questions?
I can have one. We have been struggling and trying different things over the years with the concept of either put a bunch of things into a kit and then have one barcode, or barcode everything, with the difference being obviously if you barcode everything, it's a lot easier to track if something is missing or who owes you for it. And we haven't found any good solution. So if anyone's figured that out, I would love to hear about that.
Yeah. So we generally, we do both. we have some, there are camera kits that have both the body and the lens, and the camera, the battery, charger, all of that's in a box. And then, but you can also check out like a lens separately. But I'm curious if anybody else has any, do you put items all together or make it a kind of plug and play, grab as much as you want? And also feel free to drop, as people are having a conversation out loud, you can also put things in the chat if you want to kind of vocalize your own things that are coming in. Anybody have any other kind of procedural things that they're thinking about or want to add here? It sounded like we had some questions about what to do with lost, what we do with lost and damaged items. Anybody want to give an example of what happens at their school with lost items?
I don't want to keep taking up the space, but I'm happy to give an example of ours. We use the library loaning system for our tech loan. So we're integrated into the billing system and have student information. And that's enough of a draw that some departments that had their own equipment ended up donating it to the library so that we could circulate it for them and keep track of all that stuff. But we're now looking at it through an equity lens, and we don't want someone to not check our stuff out because they're afraid that they're going to have to buy it if they mess it up. Some students just don't have that resource, and we're not entirely sure what to do about that yet. Do we say it's half the cost? Do we have like just a base cost for some things? We don't know.
Yeah, I've got some kind of similar questions, on my end, because all of like the things like the digital media collection are part of just the library's circulation. And so we've got all the student records, and it's checked out by the circulation staff, and it has seemed that they've been pretty stern about the way that they like to do fees and replacements and things like that. And I've just kind of run into, well, at what point do I have the latitude to say, but I'm special, and I don't want to have to charge a kid $300 for something that they lost, and so I think that's the question where if I had a total say over what my stuff is, as opposed to it being separate than the library collection, but it's not. It's part of the collection in our ILS. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the next iteration of the conversation about going fine free, right? Like everybody, a lot of people have gone fine free. In terms of returning items, like being late on items, we have on books, but we have not gone fine free on returning technology equipment loan items yet. It was a big battle to get us to go fine free on books. It happened more recently than I would have liked. But I see this as I think that was, the big argument, of course, with that was an equity conversation. And I think we can continue saying that it's a continuation of that conversation when we talk about how are we going to charge people? Are we going to charge people for things if they don't return it? And how does that reflect or not our library mission and values? So thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else want to think about, how do we handle that question of if something gets damaged or stolen or not returned? What do you do at your school, and what would you like to do at your school if those things are different?
Well, for us, it depends on the item. We have a VR kit. So we have a VR space, but then we also have a VR kit that you can check out that has all the equipment and all the cables and the sensors and everything. So, and obviously you have to supply a computer powerful enough to load up all that software. But we had problems where, like a cable gets broken or whatever. And I don't know about everybody else, but my campus where we are very much tied to our state funding, and there are a lot of rules about where I can and cannot spend money. So that gets real interesting when companies don't want to sell us things and take the tax off because we're an educational institution. So that's a big workaround. We have a local workaround for that. But yeah, I think that for me personally, I would love to see us, nothing besides the VR set, I don't think would be anything super expensive that we'd check out. But I mean, I would love to cap it. I mean, we charge our, you know, if you lose a book, like we want fines, but if you lose a book, you know, there's a price for like what we paid basically in the record. And it would be nice though for technology if we could decide on a cap, you know, like up to a certain point, like for these kinds of things where, you know, if you lose something, I'm going to charge you $10. If you lose something like this, it's going to, you know, if it's a different type of item. And I would, you know, I get it. It's a way to get people to return stuff, but also if they lose it, you know, we can try to replace most of it. But, you know, saying I need to replace a $300 camera, that's, depending on your budget, that's a lot to be turning around all the time and trying to do. So I think for us, it's trying to find a happy medium because we're here to provide a service. I'm not here to like make money off of students. I'm here, we know that's kind of our approach for that. And I think everything in the studio is approached that way. Any charges that we have for any items are always just what it's going to cost us to buy it. So it'd be nice for the tech if we can, we've been very lucky, knock on wood, to not have lost too much stuff. So, but yeah, I think everybody should either, if you have the funds to do it, you should be able to just, you know, charge a nominal fee because for students for loss, but for as long as they return it, isn't that the point? We just want it back. We don't really care about anything else. So.
Just wonder if students are more likely to take care of the equipment if they think they might be charged. That's one, I guess, thing in favor of charging students.
Yeah, I wonder, it's an interesting question, right? Like, is that, it's not an incentive, it's a disincentive to have to pay for the item. And I don't know, I mean, I think one thing, this is a kind of procedural question that I think it's hard unless we're having a group like this to get a sense of what everybody else is doing. And I know that at Clemson at least, and I previously helped manage the technology equipment loan program at Virginia Commonwealth University too. We're generally able to make changes based off of saying, well, this is what everybody else is doing. And here's the reason why everybody else is doing it this way. And so it's helpful to hear, you know, we have the same system at Clemson where we add in a replacement cost into the item record. And so technically in the same way that it does with a book, it will charge somebody. And I mean, they don't see that immediately. It's not something that gets emailed to them when they check out an item, you know, what the replacement cost is. And so I don't know, I'm not sure that because they're borrowing it for free, I wonder if they're thinking through the process. You know, I wonder if it's the forefront of their mind. I have to make sure that I'm kind to this equipment because I'm going to have to pay for it if I'm not. I'm not sure if that's a direct line with the students. But either way, it is a question of, you know, what are we doing across the board for this thing and how is that related to equity, and what's the best practice? Any other thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing. I think a big part of that too is, you know, is how that's communicated to borrowers, and when is it communicated to borrowers? You know, is it, you know, if I go online to see, you know, what kind of equipment you have, and, you know, there's more information about what the fees are going to be than there is about the equipment itself. Yeah, that's going to be like, well, okay, well, I don't want to borrow anything because I don't want to have to pay for it. Or is it best when they're at the moment when they're checking it out, just as a review of, hey, you know, be sure you do this and actually get a face-to-face kind of communication. I think that's part of it is, you know, how are those policies being communicated to the people borrowing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized on our site we'd have nothing about this policy. And we just hired a new staff member, so I think we'll be reviewing how we communicate that as we check things out.
Yeah. We have there for a while, we had a physical kind of a waiver coupled with the reservation form, so people saw that information. I wonder if your policy is, I think ours is part of the general circulation policy, which says if you don't return it, you're charged, you know, a capped fee, or charged a fee for the replacement. But this is a good question, and it's something definitely to continue thinking about it again, thinking about how do we keep this up. Yeah, and Paul, that's a useful thing in the chat too. And we have that, you know, I mean, sometimes we tell people like it costs, you know, it's only going to be $1 if you keep it for an extra day. So like if you need to, you know, just go ahead and keep it for the extra day. But also that I don't like saying that in general either, if that's going to be our policy. And it doesn't, all we're getting is a couple $100 accumulated over several years when we say that to people, but it's like their money. What's the point of us saying that? Like, can we just waive that in general? But then what's the policy about waiving fines or not waiving fines? How are we equitable about that? So it gets into a lot of sticky questions that I think are expanded outside of just technology equipment loan. It's general circulation things too. Okay, well, holding on to that conversation, I am curious if we jump into a broad question to kind of span the room. What do you need in your program? Are you feeling sufficiently funded? Do you need more bodies, more people to catalog things? Do you need better outreach? What are things that what are the holes that you're feeling in your program? Or if you're one of the people that are still thinking about starting a program or being involved in one of these programs, like what are the things that you need to understand what's going on? Anybody have any responses there? Yeah.
Really more space to hold the items.
Lots of nodding. Is that a comment? We also need more space to hold the items. Yes. And of course,
Yeah,
it's different. Go ahead, Nick. Yeah.
Just a lot of my time has been spent trying to figure out how best to organize our equipment that we do have. It's a constant battle.
Right. And I think it's different. It's closer to special collections, was it Sandy was talking about special collections, and then this new digital history program that you're talking about. It's closer to special collections where you're controlling access to these items instead of our general stacks, where people can browse. And so the library is created, in general, most libraries have space for general browsing, and then we have the system for pick it up and then take it to the desk. We don't have as much like back end storage, at least we don't, that is easily accessible for somebody to grab. Yeah, we're thinking about that a lot too.
Going into a renovation soon, and we're looking at how we want to do our equipment checkout, and we'd like to be able to display it like a retail type of thing, but also have the security as well. Right now, everything's just locked in cabinets, and we do have, there are pictures on the website if people happen to go there. I've got a video screen that runs a slideshow of the items that pass through, but still there's a good share of the time where people are just like, do you have this? Or I wish I'd known you had this all this time, and they don't know about it. So promoting things and without it just being right up there in front and center.
Yeah, that outreach component is huge. I feel like admin at Clemson is always asking, like, how do we make sure that people know about this stuff? Like, should we make a petting zoo? And I know of one library that's done that, where at NC State Hunt Library, if anybody's been there, you've seen it right when you walk in. There's a glass cube where they would put out the items, and they were locked down in the same way that they are like at the Apple store, so you could browse. But my understanding is that did not necessarily succeed as a way for people to see what was going on, and they are like changing that. Now it's been, I think, 5 or 6 years since Hunt Library opened, and so they are taking away that space for that kind of tech petting zoo thing. But I think that's, people are always asking, do we want to do that? And I'm like, I don't think it has worked in other places, but if you have any examples of that. So thinking about outreach in general, how do we showcase? Yeah, I think, Paul, you raised your hand.
Yeah, we had a kind of like a staffed version of that, where we'd have some of our staff sit up in the lobby of the library for a couple of hours with a folding table in front of them with a bunch of equipment on it, and just ask the students as they were walking by, did you know you could check this out right now? Do you see anything here that you want? Do you want something that's not here? And for us, that works. So I'm wondering if it's having the personal connection there, having the Q&A option rather than just sticking it in the glass cube that made the difference.
Yeah. Well, in general, my philosophy is like, we solve problems with people, not with more technology. And so I think that I agree that you have, having the people there to talk about that. I know Nick has been doing those tech petting zoos at Clemson as well.
Yeah, we recently just ran one a couple weeks ago. And this time we were set up pretty close to the entrance doors. And yeah, we got a large number of people coming up that had no idea we even offered most of what we have. So I think that was very productive. Yeah.
And then there's a lot of chats going on about thinking still about the question of need is funding, of course. And that's a big question that I'm curious about for you guys is what is your funding situation? Just to talk about what's going on with us as well at Clemson. We have a reoccurring budget for a technology equipment loan that's about $10,000 a year, can be up to $20,000 a year, kind of varies. That is not part of the general collection fund. It basically is from the dean's office. It's admin funding. So it's that's why it's different every year because we have to kind of ask for it and make sure it's still there. We have had success getting funding from students at Clemson. Get to control a fair amount of money, the student activity fee and the student technology fee. We have pitched for that money before. This past year, Alexis and Nick got $23,000 to buy a slew of new cameras that students gave. The student government allocated that. And I feel like we're pretty lucky to have that reoccurring funding. I'm curious if anybody, but of course we would like it to be more. And I'm like, it's 21% of the overall circulation, and this is a fraction of the collection budget. Curious if anybody else wants to talk about their funding or their budget.
I can talk about that. We just discovered this week that we have $500 to go towards VR titles. So that was good to hear. And it's part of the collections budget. Otherwise, we have a wish list that we put things in. And if there's one-time money at the end of the year, then we can usually afford to buy something or seek grant seeking.
Yeah. And are you doing internal or external grants? Like to the, is it internal university or national grants?
There's one that we can really count on that's internal. That's like a couple thousand. And then sometimes we eye external ones. And there's one that we're working on right now, a state grant.
Anybody else thinking about budget?
I mean, the grants for us as well. Obviously I put in the chat, we have to commit to refreshing the technology. So we got a grant in 2018. And so the computers that were purchased then are now up for refresh. So we're having to make choices and decisions about what we're trying to get a hold of. But yeah, I think once it's for us in North Carolina, they sort of tout LSTA money as being, librarians I know here call it money to fail, because often you are not given money to fail. It has to be successful. So the idea of getting LSTA money it means I got to buy stuff for our space that, then, it's still sitting on a shelf somewhere, like this might get used. I don't know. There's a few things that you buy and then you're like, well, that didn't work. But it's not a whole lot of skin off other people's teeth, but yeah, relying on, if that's the case, if you need to prove your case but have people commit to replacing stuff, then a grant is a great way to do that. But we don't necessarily have, besides technology funding, I don't really have a set of funding. I can kind of, I asked the dean's office, I would love to have one of these. Can I have one of these? And then you cross your fingers and hope. So yeah.
Sandy, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I don't think I had mentioned that there are some laptops that are in that secure storage room as part of the studio. And we got those and all of the equipment in the space. There's a recording studio as well, as part of the renovation itself. And so as part of the renovation budget, but because we're partnering with the School of Humanities and Social Sciences and the center, and those laptops are to support them specifically, they're actually responsible for replacing that equipment. However, several years back, our students actually led, our Student Government Association led an effort they wanted longer hours for the library, so they voted to fee themselves at a graduated rate. And so we are at the $5 credit hour up to 12 credit hours right now. And then this next fiscal year, we're going up to 7 for 2 years and then up to 10 a credit hour. And at the higher levels, that's actually what we committed to is additional equipment. And that's a lot of extra money for us, but additional equipment and also staffing. So when I said we were fundraising for staffing, that's just because we have this opportunity with this donor to maybe bridge us to a couple of years to get to the $10 credit hour. But it's all supposed to be supporting students specifically. And so we're going to try to, right now it's just focus on this, the Center for Digital and Public Humanities, but a very specialized, even though the space is open all hours that the library is open. But if we can get it to be more broadly accessible, that's our goal. And so that it's not just for them. And then we have to revisit that model because it's no longer, there just for the School of Humanities and Social Sciences.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that raises a question that I saw in the chat as well. I think Kelly mentioned a lot of questions that she has. And one of them is that kind of, this is a question of staffing. I think that for me also extends into specialized staffing, and also how are we training staff to communicate with patrons, and also are we asking staff to train the patrons and how to use this equipment, and or how otherwise are the students learning how to use this stuff? That's a question that I am personally very interested in. I conducted a survey at Clemson that went out to anybody that had borrowed equipment for about 6 months. I ran it, that gauged asked them to self-assess their familiarity with the equipment before and after borrowing, or their comfort level with the equipment before and after borrowing, and also asked, how would you want us to give you more information about the equipment and how to use it? And I can share some of that as well. It's in the process of being published. So there's this question of staffing, and also the question of training or assistance with the equipment. Anybody else thinking about that stuff or have specific questions about that? Sounds like we have a broad range of responses to staffing. Some people that are kind of doing the daily operations, and some people that are thinking about it more broadly. So that's staffing. And then again, also the question of how do you provide manuals with your equipment? Do you provide links to the manuals with the equipment? Do you have your homemade digital guides? I'm curious what people do and if it's working or not.
We're transitioning to including links to the manuals in the kit. We're starting to put pictures of everything that's supposed to be in the kit on the outside and on the inside of the kit to make it easier to loan and return correctly. And so we're trying some either QR codes to our own guides about them or links to the manufacturer manuals.
Yeah. And are you putting a QR code or a URL?
We're doing a URL if it's a vendor product, if it's like their own manual for that item. We're doing a QR code if it's something that we created.
Interesting. And I will say, when I surveyed the Clemson students, that was not far and away, but like the majority of people said that they were asking for links to digital, like a digital link, or a URL to a guide to help get more information about the equipment. Links to manuals. Great. And okay, so we have about 10 minutes left. What have we not, are there any burning questions that we haven't covered yet? Anything that people want to know? Oh, Mario has a public, so yes, jump in and feel free to drop in the chat if you have a specific question, so we can talk about Mario's question first. I have a public space VR question. What kind of software do you have installed? Any licensed software or games for public use? Anybody with a VR space want to tackle this one, or VR in general?
We have VR like many people. We purchase games through Steam. And so we have 2 accounts, and so we will purchase the same title for the 2 accounts, and then the person can use it. So we use Oculus Rift right now. So we definitely, like I said before, we have a budget to purchase VR games, but we are very interested in working with like the digital arts and computer science to try and create content that is created by the university and showcase that. But we also are trying to use classes that have 360 video and then upload those to YouTube and then look at that through the VR as well.
I think VR poses unique problems for learning and also usage in the library. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of questions about how do you do, like Jason, I'm curious if, I'm not sure if you said that if those are loanable or not, and if you have if you are allowing people to log into their own Steam, and if you are asking people to log into their own Facebook account on the Oculus and then you wipe it, are they taking them home? You know, there's all that stuff.
Yes. No, right now we do not loan VR equipment, and we don't let students log in. Yep.
Yeah. We had VR equipment. It was old equipment that a faculty member got from a grant and then donated probably in 2016 or 2017. That we recently took out, well, somewhat recently, a couple years ago, took out of circulation because was it Kara who was saying, you know, you loan VR equipment, but you require people to have their own like high-powered laptop. Basically, we were not seeing success with people having strong enough laptops to run the VR equipment and also have the familiarity with the equipment to set it up. I think if they are there, then they have their own VR equipment already, is like what I found. But there's a lot of questions about VR for sure. And then Sandy has a question here. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody wants to drop into the chat or unmute to talk about the centralizing equipment checkout at the main circ desk or have its own space. We do it at the main circ desk for now. I did a review of library, like peer institutions to Clemson, and was looking at whether they do it out of the circ desk or somewhere else in the library. And when we did that, we found that, I'm pulling up the thing right now. Of the 12 libraries that I looked at, 3 of them did it out of the main desk, and 9 did it from an alternative desk. So whether that was the Learning Commons or Media Commons, Multimedia Center. So at least when I did that, this was maybe 3 years ago at that point, the majority of libraries were doing it not at the circ desk. Clemson is an outlier there. We are part of the group that does it at the circ desk, at least for now. Anybody else want to talk about pros and I have a lot of thoughts on that topic, pros and cons. I'll stop talking there. And a lot of people dropping into the chat.
We have an expansion coming up, and we're planning on having a technology checkout desk that's kind of outside of our space, but near our space. And I think it will be partially manned by circulation and our people at the same time. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have found is because because technology equipment loan is such a high percentage of the circulation, some of the people at the circ desk don't want it to leave the circ desk because it, promotes moving through the circ desk. That's that's an interesting, that's one thing to think about with the circ desk. I think that there's a lot of benefits to having it off the circ desk if you have the staffing to train specialized staff and to keep those hours open. But of course, it requires a lot of collaboration and communication with general circ to keep policies and procedures aligned. So yeah, definitely pros and cons on in both directions. Yeah. Yeah, it's Jason. That's Nick can talk a lot about training staff as well to
I think
general
that
staff.
I think that factors into the specialized staff, Kelsey, that you had mentioned. I think that we have people in both camps of not wanting it and wanting it at circ for these specific reasons. Yeah, it is at times, I think, a little bit unfortunate, the knowledge gap between what I know doing this job and then what other general staff workers know, don't want to know.
Yeah, and I just dropped that little spreadsheet in the chat again, where I was looking at technology equipment loan procedures across peer institutions. I just got this from websites, not actually talking to people. So if you belong to one of these schools, please let me know and I'll correct it. This was just an internal thing that I did to talk about us continuing to do reservations or not, and looking at the desks or not, trying to get a lay of the land. I think this is also an area for future study of what, I think we're all doing. We all have similar missions and different ways of getting there in terms of the things. Yeah, the GoPros are a nightmare. There's so many little pieces and parts to the GoPros. Okay, so we have 3 minutes left in our time here. So with, I think these are all incredible questions, and I think it's really helpful to talk to people about what we're doing with these things. Again, whether it's daily procedures or big strategic questions. One question I have for you guys, and also I will say I am part of the ACTAL planning group. So, this is our first stab at having this virtual conference and also our in-person conference, which is happening next week. So we're figuring things out as we go along, but we have basically been identifying that there's not a forum for these things. And so how do we go about putting them together, and what would be helpful? So my question is for you guys, do you need further community about these topics? Do we need yet another listserv, or would it be better to have a different forum on these things? Do we need a shared, I've been seeing some really helpful, I think there's a Digital Humanities Center Google sheets that's floating around where people can fill in their own, procedures and contact information. Do we need is that a starting point? Any other thoughts there about continuing this community around technology equipment loan programs? Listserv, forum, all of the things. Awesome. Are people burnt out on listservs?
A little bit. I think
okay.
Because the way it comes through, it's like I've already got so much email. So anything that's on a listserv, it just feels like more email, even though it's not really email.
Right.
Something that's more kind of forum based, I'd be into.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, no problem if you have to run. We'll wrap things up. Thank you for those thoughts. I will hold those, and I will continue to talk to the ACTAL organizers about exactly what our next steps are in terms of, because I think we have a lot that we can do around technology equipment loan, but also around VR, as we talked about today, and media labs and maker spaces. And it's is it a list? We haven't answered the question of, is it a listserv? Is it something else? Is it a forum that we can make? Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. That flew by. and maybe see some of y'all next week. Otherwise, feel free to email me or Nick if you have any questions. It was really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Definitely. Oh, there you are. Liz, we definitely will email if there are more meetings. Okay, so Keys, you captured it'll capture the chat.
I don't know if it'll capture the chat.
Okay.
I would.
I'm gonna copy and paste it then.
Yeah.
Okay, I at least have a little.
And then Liz, I'm going to be doing a big collection of all the recordings and having our student staff make sure that they're all captioned and edited. And then we'll put them in a big old playlist and make them publicly available.
Oh yeah, Nick and I were like chatting at the beginning, so.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take all that out. I'm gonna take all that out. So they'll probably be up, if not next week, very shortly after the full conference is over. But I'm gonna try really hard to get them done before we head out.
Yeah, usually the transcript does come through when you record, but it comes as like a text
Yeah, we're
file,
actually
I think.
required to send them through Verbit, so ours takes 72 hours to generate.
Sorry, not the captions, the chat itself comes through as I think it comes through as something. I'm trying to remember how it comes through, but it's like a different file. So
Yeah,
the question
it
is like,
saves it as a TXT file.
right. So are you gonna, I wonder if you should add that to the playlist or not.
I'm not sure because it's gonna go through Kaltura, and Kaltura doesn't, like, Zoom itself can capture the live chat, but we only keep our Zooms for 60 days.
I know it's a good question, because like in this one there was a fair amount of information in the chat, and I bet that's true of the other roundtables too. So it's just like, what do we do about that? I don't know the answer.
I mean, it's the ephemera of, hopefully the question was asked back out loud or read back out loud in the session.
Yeah, like the questions are, but the answers aren't. Because people were like popcorn answers. I'll keep thinking about it. I mean, if there's a way, like.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know if I hit save on yours because you asked me to, but I didn't for the ones earlier. And I don't think it's saved automatically necessarily.
Yeah.
So we can think about it. I'm still just recovering from the great glitch. So
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll keep thinking about it too. And if you think to save them, I just, based off of like this roundtable and other like virtual roundtables I've been to, I think it's helpful to have at least like, I know it's ephemera, but if we can capture it because there is valuable information in it, I think that's helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes what's more helpful than the full chat is just like a distilled version of the chat sometimes, or like
right.
a note, having notes, but we can think about it. At least there's recordings.
Yeah.
Step one.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Have
great.
a good rest of your day.